The stars had never looked so beautiful too. She stood at the window of the diplomatic ship, watching distant galaxies spin in the endless dark. Behind her, the soft hum of engines filled the silence. This was humanity's greatest moment. After 50 years of careful talks, they were finally going to sign a peace treaty with the Dominion. Was 62 years old. She had given her entire life to this dream. When she was young, they had come to Earth with demands. They wanted resources. They wanted obedience. But humanity had chosen a different path. Instead of war, they chose words. Instead of weapons, they chose wisdom. The door behind her opened. Her assistant, a young man named, walked in with a tablet in his hands. His face was calm but could see worry in his eyes. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "we will arrive at the station in 3 hours." Nodded. "Good. Is the delegation ready?" "Yes, all 12 representatives are prepared. The documents are ready for signing." Turned back to the window. 12 representatives from 12 nations, the best diplomats Earth had ever produced. They had worked for decades to reach this point. They were a proud species. They valued strength above all things. Convincing them that peace was not weakness had been the hardest task of her life. She said softly, "Do you believe we will succeed?" The young man was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "I believe in you, Ambassador. You have done what no one thought possible. You made the listen." Smiled. It was a tired smile. Listening and believing are different things. They have listened to us for 50 years, but I have never been sure if they truly believe peace is better than conquest. She remembered the first time she had met the High Commander. His name was, and he was a giant creature with skin and 4 arms. His eyes were yellow and cold. He had looked at her like she was an insect, something small and meaningless. But had not been afraid. She had spoken to him with respect but also with strength. She had told him that humans were not weak. They simply chose not to fight. There was a difference. Had laughed at her words, but over the years he had started to listen, and now finally he had agreed to peace. The 3 hours passed slowly. Spent the time reviewing the treaty one last time. Every word had been carefully chosen. Every promise had been debated for months. This document represented the hope of billions of humans. When the ship finally arrived at the station, took a deep breath. The station was massive. It was built like a fortress with sharp edges and dark metal. Warships surrounded it like a swarm of metal insects. "They certainly love to show their power," said quietly. "That is their way," replied. "They believe strength must be displayed. We will show them a different kind of strength today." The diplomatic ship docked at the station, led her delegation through the metal corridors. Soldiers watched them with cold eyes. Each soldier was over 7 feet tall. Their bodies were built for battle. Their hands could crush human bones like paper. But walked with her head held high. She had faced these giants many times before. She would not show fear now. The meeting room was large and dark. At the center was a long table made of black stone. High Commander sat at the far end. Around him were the other leaders. Their faces showed no emotion. Walked to her seat at the opposite end of the table. Her delegation took their places behind her. The room was silent. "Ambassador," said, his voice was deep like thunder, "you have come a long way." "High Commander," replied with a bow, "we are honored to be here. Today is a great day for both our peoples." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You have said this many times. You have spoken of peace for 50 years. You have shown us patience that my people find strange." "Peace requires patience," said. "It requires trust. It requires the courage to choose words over weapons." "Courage," repeated. He leaned forward in his chair. "You speak of courage, but my people see something else when they look at humans. Do you know what they see?" Felt a cold feeling in her chest. Something was wrong. Eyes were different today. There was something dark in them, something dangerous. "What do they see?" she asked carefully. "Weakness," said. For 50 years we have pushed you, we have made demands, we have threatened your worlds, and what did you do? You talked, you negotiated, you begged for peace." "We did not beg," said firmly. "We offered friendship, we offered trade, we offered a future where both our peoples could grow together." Stood up, he was massive. His shadow fell over the entire table. "You offered the words of the weak," he growled. "My people have grown tired of your words. They do not make peace with the weak, we conquer them." His heart began to beat faster. She looked at the other leaders. Their eyes were no longer empty. They were hungry. "High Commander," she said, keeping her voice steady, "we came here in good faith. We came to sign a treaty that would benefit both our peoples. This is not." "Silence!" roared. The sound echoed through the room. "The time for your words is over. We have studied your species for 50 years. We know everything about you. Your weapons are primitive. Your military is small. Your people are soft." He walked around the table toward her. Each step made the floor shake. "We know about your hidden colonies," he continued. "We know about your secret ships. You think you have been clever, but we have seen everything. And we have decided. Humanity is not worth peace. Humanity is worth only conquest." Stood up from her chair. She was small compared to him, but she did not step back. "You are making a terrible mistake," she said quietly. Laughed. It was an ugly sound. "A mistake? Look around you, Ambassador. You are surrounded by our fleet. Your home planet is at our mercy. In 1 hour our ships will reach Earth. Your people will fall, and you will watch." Closed her eyes for a moment. 50 years. 50 years of work. 50 years of hope. All of it was ending in this dark room. She opened her eyes and looked at. There was no fear in her face, only sadness. "I feel sorry for you," she said. His eyes widened with anger. "Sorry, you dare." "I feel sorry," continued, "because you have made a choice you cannot undo. We came to you with open hands. We offered you everything, and you chose violence." She turned to look at her delegation. Their faces were pale with fear, but they stood together. They would not run. "You think you know us," said Tu. "You have watched us for 50 years, but you have only seen one side of humanity, the peaceful side, the patient side, the side that hopes and dreams and believes in the good of others." She took a step toward him. Her voice grew cold. "There is another side, a side we have kept hidden, a side we prayed you would never have to see, because that side of us, High Commander, is not gentle, it is not patient, it does not forgive." Grabbed her by the throat and lifted her off the ground. His grip was like iron. "Enough of your words," he snarled. "They will not save you." Struggled to breathe, but even now she did not look away from his eyes. "They are not meant to save me," she whispered. "They are meant to warn you." Far away, on the bridge of a hidden human ship, Admiral received the signal. It was the signal they had prayed would never come. The signal that meant all hope for peace was gone. He was an old man with hair and tired eyes. He had been a soldier once, a long time ago before the diplomats took over. He had believed in his dream. He had hoped she would succeed. But he had also prepared for failure. "Sir," his officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth Command." Nodded slowly, put it through. The screen flickered to life. On it was the face of a woman. She was crying. "Admiral," she said, her voice breaking, "the fleet has reached Earth. They are destroying everything. The cities are burning. Millions are already dead." Felt his heart turn to stone. He had known this might happen, but knowing and feeling were different things. "What are our orders?" he asked. The woman took a deep breath. She wiped her tears, and when she spoke again, her voice was hard. "The Council has sent a final message. They want it broadcast to every ship, to every colony, to every human who is still alive." She looked directly into the camera. "The message is this: we tried peace. Now you'll meet the other side of humans." Closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were different. The tired old man was gone. In his place was something else. something the galaxy had never seen. He turned to his crew. His voice was calm and cold. "Activate the Ghost Protocol," he said. "Send the signal to all hidden colonies, wake up the Shadow Fleet, and prepare the weapons." His officer's face went pale. "Sir, those weapons are banned, the Galactic treaties." "The treaties are dead," said. "The killed them. Now they will learn what happens when humans stop being nice." He looked at the stars through the window. Somewhere out there, Earth was burning, his home, his people, his world. "They wanted to meet the other side of humans," he whispered to himself. "So be it." The old man sat down in his chair. All around him the ship came alive. Screens lit up. Systems activated. The sleeping giant was waking up. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The signal traveled faster than light. It moved through secret channels that no alien species knew existed. It passed through hidden relay stations buried in asteroids and moons. And in less than 1 hour, it reached every corner of human space. Commander was sleeping when the signal arrived. She was dreaming of her daughter, a little girl with bright eyes and a loud laugh. In the dream, they were walking on a beach on Earth. The sun was warm. The water was blue. Everything was peaceful. Then the alarm sounded, and the dream broke apart. Opened her eyes, she was not on a beach. She was in a metal room deep inside an asteroid. Around her, red lights were flashing. The alarm was screaming. She jumped out of bed and ran to the command center. Other soldiers were already there, their faces confused and afraid. They were all looking at the main screen. On the screen was a simple message, 3 words that changed everything. Ghost Protocol ACTIVATED. Felt her blood turn cold. She had known this day might come. Every person in this hidden base had known, but they had all prayed it would never happen. "Commander," one of her officers said, his voice shaking, "is this real?" Walked to the screen and entered her personal code. The message expanded. More information appeared. Reports from Earth. Images of burning cities. Numbers of the dead. She stared at the screen for a long time. Her hands were shaking. But when she turned to face her people, her eyes were dry. "It is real," she said. "Earth has fallen, they have broken the peace, and now we have new orders." She pressed a button on the console. The base began to shake. Deep in the asteroid, machines that had been sleeping for decades began to wake up. "For 50 years, said, we have hidden here, we have trained in secret. We have built weapons that the galaxy does not know exist. We have prepared for the day when peace would fail." She looked at each of her soldiers. Some were crying, some were angry, some showed no emotion at all. "That day is today," she continued. "They think they know us. They think humans are weak. They think we only know how to talk and beg. They are wrong." The base shook again. On the screen, a new image appeared. It was a ship, but not just any ship. It was massive. It was black. It was covered in weapons that looked like something from a nightmare. "They are about to meet the other side of humanity," said, "and they will wish they had chosen peace." All across human space, the same scene was happening. Hidden bases inside asteroids were waking up. Secret shipyards in the dark spaces between stars began to open. Colonies that had pretended to be simple farming worlds revealed their true purpose. For 50 years, while the diplomats talked of peace, the military had been preparing for war. They had done it in secret. No alien species knew. Even most humans did not know. The plan was simple: hope for the best, prepare for the worst. On a small moon far from any trade routes, Admiral watched the reports come in. His ship, the Silent Thunder, was no longer silent. All around him, other ships were appearing. They emerged from hiding places in asteroid fields. They rose from beneath the surface of dead planets. They jumped in from hidden bases in other star systems. In 1 hour, the scattered pieces of humanity's secret military came together, and what the galaxy saw was terrifying. "Sir," his officer said, "we have confirmed contact with all hidden bases. The full strength of the Shadow Fleet is now online. Nodded slowly. How many ships? The officer checked his screen. Over 8,000 warships, sir, plus 12,000 support vessels, and the special weapons platforms are also active. 8,000 warships. The thought they knew human strength. They had counted the public fleet. They had laughed at the small number of human ships. They had no idea that for every ship they could see, 10 more were hiding in the darkness. What about the weapons? Asked. The officer hesitated. All special weapons are ready, sir, but I must ask, are we really going to use them? Some of these weapons are. They are very destructive. Looked at the young man. He remembered being that age. He remembered believing that war had rules, that there were lines that should never be crossed. They killed millions of our people in one day, said quietly. They burned our cities. They destroyed our homes. They murdered our children. They did all this while we offered them peace. He stood up from his chair and walked to the window. Yes, he said, we will use every weapon we have, and when we are done, the galaxy will understand something very important. What is that, sir? Turned to look at him. His eyes were hard and cold. They will understand that humans are not peaceful because we are weak. We are peaceful because we know what we are capable of. And now they will learn that lesson too. On the main warship, High Commander was celebrating. The attack on Earth had been a complete success. The human was in flames. Their leaders were dead or captured. Their military was destroyed. He had Ambassador in a cell. She had not spoken since they captured her. She just sat in the corner, her eyes empty, saying nothing. Enjoyed visiting her. He enjoyed reminding her that all her work had been for nothing. Your people are dying, he told her through the bars. Your world is gone. Your dream of peace was foolish from the start. Did not look at him. She just stared at the wall. You should have known better, continued. The universe belongs to the strong. Your species was never strong. You were always destined to fall. For the first time since her capture spoke. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. You still do not understand. Laughed. What is there to understand? We have won, you have lost. The matter is simple. Slowly turned to look at him. There was something different in her eyes now, something that made feel uncomfortable. You have not won, she said. You have only started something that you cannot finish. Empty words from a defeated enemy. Tell me something, High Commander. Stood up and walked to the bars. In your 50 years of watching us, did you ever wonder why we tried so hard for peace? Did you ever ask yourself why we chose words instead of weapons? Snorted, because you were afraid, because you knew you could not win a war against us. Shook her head slowly. No, we chose peace because we were afraid of ourselves. Before could respond, an alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed across the ship. He heard shouting in the corridors. High Commander, a voice came through his communicator. We have a problem. Multiple ships appearing at the edge of the system. They are human ships. Grabbed his communicator. Impossible, we destroyed their fleet. Sir, these are different ships. We have never seen designs like this. And there are thousands of them. Felt something he had not felt in a long time. Fear. He ran to the command center, leaving alone in her cell. When he arrived, his officers were in chaos. The screens showed images that made no sense. Human ships, thousands of them. Ships that were black as night and covered in weapons. Ships that were 10 times larger than anything humans were supposed to have. Ships that appeared out of nowhere as if they had been hiding in empty space. Where did they come from? Demanded. This is not possible. We watched them for 50 years. We knew all their ships. We do not know, sir, an officer replied. They just appeared. Our sensors cannot track them properly. It is like they are ghosts. On the screens, the human fleet began to move. They moved in perfect formation. They moved with purpose. They moved like predators who had found their prey. And then the first weapons fired. had seen many weapons in his long military career. He had seen ships explode. He had seen planets burn, but he had never seen anything like this. The human weapons did not just destroy the ships, they tore them apart at the molecular level. One moment a ship was there. The next moment it was dust. No explosion, no fire, just complete destruction. In the first minute, 50 ships died. "Return fire," screamed. All ships returned fire. But the weapons seemed useless. The human ships moved too fast. Their shields were too strong. Every time a weapon got close, the human ship simply disappeared and reappeared somewhere else. "What kind of technology is this?" whispered. "This is not possible." Back in her cell, listened to the sounds of battle. She heard the explosions. She heard the screaming. She heard the fear in voices. And for the first time since her capture, she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was a sad smile, because she knew what was coming. She had spent her life trying to prevent this. She had tried so hard to show the galaxy that humans could be peaceful. But they had not listened. They had seen human kindness and called it weakness. They had seen human patience and called it fear. They had never understood the truth. Humans were not peaceful because they were weak. Humans were peaceful because they remembered what they used to be. They remembered the wars of their past. They remembered the weapons they had built. They remembered the destruction they were capable of. And they had chosen to be better. But now that choice was gone. They had taken it from them, and the other side of humanity was awake. Closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, not for herself, but for the galaxy. Because when humans stopped being kind, the universe learned to be afraid. On the bridge of the silent thunder, Admiral watched the battle unfold. They were fighting back, but it was hopeless. Human technology was 50 years ahead of anything they had imagined. Human weapons were designed for complete victory. Human ships were built for war. "The flagship is trying to retreat," an officer reported. "Should we let them go?" Thought about it. He thought about the burning cities on Earth. He thought about the millions of dead. He thought about the trust that had been broken. "No," he said quietly. "No one escapes. The galaxy needs to understand what happens when you attack humanity." He leaned forward in his chair. "Send them our message. Let them hear it before they die." The communication officer nodded and opened a channel to all ships, and then Admiral spoke. His voice was broadcast across the system. Every heard his words. "This is Admiral of the human shadow fleet. You came to our home with fire and death. You killed our people. You burned our world. You thought you knew us. You were wrong." He paused and let the words sink in. "We tried peace. You answered with war. So now you will meet the other side of humans. And when the last of your ships is dust, when the last of your soldiers is dead, when the last of your worlds is silent, remember this moment. Remember that we gave you a choice, and you chose destruction." He cut the communication and sat back in his chair. "Finish them," he said. And the human fleet did exactly that. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species heard the story. The mighty conquerors of 100 worlds had been destroyed in a single day. Their fleet was gone. Their commanders were dead. And the humans, the peaceful humans who had spent 50 years begging for friendship, had done it. But that was only the beginning. Captain stood on the bridge of his ship, the Night Blade. He was a young man, only 32 years old, but his eyes were old. He had been training for this his entire life. He was born in one of the hidden colonies. He had never known Earth. He had never known peace. He only knew war. Around him, the first Shadow Fleet waited in the darkness between stars. 200 ships, the fastest and most deadly vessels humanity had ever built. They were painted black and covered in special material that made them invisible to sensors. They were ghosts. "Captain," his second officer, a woman named Bora, said quietly, "We have received new orders from Admiral." Nodded, "Show me." The message appeared on his screen. It was simple and clear. Enter space. Destroy their supply lines, make them afraid. The hunt begins, said. He had been waiting for this moment his entire life. The people of his colony had told him stories about Earth, about the beautiful blue planet that they had lost, about the peaceful life that had been taken from them. They had told him about thee and their cruelty, about how they had rejected peace and chosen war. And they had told him what his purpose was, to be ready, to be a weapon, to strike when the time came. The time had come. Set course for the supply station at Torrens 7, ordered. We move in 3 hours. Tell all ships to prepare for combat. Bora hesitated. Captain, Torrens 7 is deep in territory if we are discovered. We will not be discovered, said. That is the point of being ghosts. The first shadow fleet moved like shadows through the night. They traveled along secret paths that no alien species knew. They used technology that bent light and fooled sensors. They were there, and then they were not. The supply station at Torrens 7 was massive. It was a central point for food, weapons, and fuel. Hundreds of cargo ships passed through every day. It was protected by 50 warships and thousands of soldiers. But they were watching the wrong direction. The human ships appeared from nowhere. One moment the space around the station was empty. The next moment it was filled with death. Watched from his bridge as the Night Blade fired its weapons. The first warship exploded before its crew even knew they were under attack. The second ship tried to send a distress signal, but human jamming systems blocked all communication. Fast and clean, ordered. No survivors, no signals. In 15 minutes the station was gone, 50 warships destroyed, all cargo ships eliminated, all supplies lost. Sir, Bora reported, mission successful, no human casualties, enemy completely eliminated. Nodded slowly. He did not celebrate, there was no joy in this, only necessity. Set course for the next target, he said. We have a lot of work to do. And so the hunt continued. The first shadow fleet moved through space like a disease. They attacked supply stations. They destroyed weapon factories. They eliminated fuel depots. They killed commanders and soldiers and anyone who stood in their way. They did not understand what was happening. Their communications were filled with panic and confusion. Ships disappeared without explanation. Stations went silent. Convoys vanished. It was as if invisible demons were hunting them. And in a way they were. The new High Commander was losing his mind. His name was, and he had taken power after death. He had believed he could handle the humans. He had been wrong. Another attack. An officer screamed as he ran into the command room. The humans hit our supply line at 3. Everything is destroyed. Slammed his fist on the table. How are they doing this? We have sensors everywhere. We have patrols on every route. How are they getting through? No one had an answer. The truth was that human technology was beyond anything they had imagined. For 50 years, while the diplomats talked, the scientists had worked. They had developed engines that moved faster than light. They had created weapons that could destroy planets. They had built ships that could become invisible. They had done all this in secret, because humans understood something that they did not. Peace was always the first choice, but it should never be the only choice. Captain brought his fleet to their next target. It was a military academy on a small moon. Young soldiers trained there. The commanders of tomorrow learned the art of war within its walls. Captain, Bora said, her voice uncertain. This target is a school. Was quiet for a moment. He understood what she was saying. Attacking a school felt wrong. It felt cruel, but he had his orders. A school that trains soldiers who will kill our people, he said finally. A school that creates commanders who will attack our colonies. A school that turns children into weapons. He looked at Bora. His eyes were sad but determined. I do not enjoy this, he said quietly. None of us do, but they started this war. They chose to kill our children on Earth. They gave us no mercy, and now we give them none. The academy was destroyed before dawn. News of the attack spread quickly. They were horrified. They called the humans monsters. They called them savages. They screamed for revenge. But revenge was hard to get when your enemy was a ghost. Far away on a rescue ship that had escaped the battle with the flagship, Ambassador listened to the news. She had been freed by Admiral's forces. She was safe now, but she did not feel safe. She felt empty. "Ambassador," a young officer said, "Admiral wishes to speak with you." Nodded and walked to the communication room. His face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, old, but there was steel in his eyes. "Ambassador," he said, "I am glad you are alive." "Thank you, Admiral," replied, "though sometimes I wonder if survival is a blessing or a curse." Understood what she meant. You dedicated your life to peace, and now you are watching us become the thing you feared most. "Yes," his voice was heavy with sorrow. "I spent 50 years trying to show the galaxy that humans could be kind, that we could be gentle, that we could be trusted." She looked away from the screen. "Now Captain is destroying schools. Now our weapons are tearing their cities apart. Now we are proving that everything they feared about us was true." Was silent for a moment, then he spoke slowly. "They gave us no choice, you know this." "I know," wiped a tear from her eye, "but knowing does not make it easier. We are becoming monsters, Admiral. Even if we win this war, what will we become at the end?" Had no answer for that. In space, Captain continued his mission. His fleet had destroyed over 30 targets in 2 weeks. The economy was collapsing. Their military was in chaos. Their people were afraid. But knew this was only the beginning. The real battle was yet to come. "Captain," Bora reported, "we have received new intelligence. They are gathering their remaining fleet at there. They are preparing a defense." Nodded. "How many ships?" "Over 2,000. It is everything they have left." 2,000 ships. It was a large number, but the human fleet was larger, and human technology was superior. "Send a message to Admiral," said. "Tell him we have completed our mission. The supply lines are destroyed. Their military is weakened. They are ready to fall." He looked at the stars through the window. Somewhere out there, Earth was still burning. His home was gone. His people were dead. And the only thing left was revenge. "The hunt is almost over," he said quietly. "Now comes the kill." Onda stood on his balcony and looked at the sky. He could see the lights of his defensive fleet. 2,000 ships, the pride of the Empire, the last hope of his people. He remembered the day when had decided to attack Earth. He remembered thinking it was a good idea. Humans were weak. Humans were soft. Humans would fall easily. How wrong they had been. Now the humans were coming. Not the peaceful humans who had begged for friendship. Not the gentle humans who had offered trade and cooperation. These were different humans. These were humans who had been pushed too far. Humans who had lost everything. Humans who had nothing left but rage. Was afraid. For the first time in his life, he understood what fear really meant. Not the fear of losing a battle, not the fear of death, but the fear of something unstoppable, something that could not be reasoned with, something that would not stop until everything was destroyed. The humans were coming, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. He thought about sending a message, asking for peace, begging for mercy, but he knew it was useless. The humans had offered peace for 50 years. They had offered mercy for 50 years, and the had rejected them. Now it was too late for words. Looked at the sky one last time. He could see the stars, so many worlds. He wondered how many of them would remember the after they were gone. Then he went inside to prepare for war. There was nothing else to do. The hunt was ending. The battle was about to begin. And the galaxy was about to learn the true meaning of human vengeance. General Wu had never wanted to be a soldier. When she was young, she had dreamed of being a painter. She loved colors and light, and the way shadows fell on water. She had spent hours drawing pictures of flowers and mountains and the faces of people she loved. But life had other plans. She was born in a hidden colony just like Captain. She grew up learning to fight before she learned to read. Her hands, which should have held brushes, learned to hold weapons instead. Her eyes, which should have looked for beauty, learned to look for enemies. Now she was 60 years old. She had fought in 100 secret battles. She had trained thousands of soldiers. And today, she was going to lead the largest attack in human history. The human fleet gathered at the edge of space. Over 8,000 warships, millions of soldiers, weapons that could tear planets apart. It was the greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. And General Wu was in command. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Iron Justice. Around her, officers worked at their stations. Screens showed the positions of every ship. Communication channels buzzed with reports from every corner of the fleet. "General," her aide said, "all units are in position. We are ready to begin the attack." Wu nodded slowly. She looked at the screen showing It was a large planet with red oceans and brown land. 2 billion lived there. 2 billion souls who would soon face the full anger of humanity. She thought about Earth. She had never seen it with her own eyes. She had only seen pictures and videos. The blue oceans, the green forests, the white clouds, it had looked so beautiful, so peaceful. Now it was gone, burned by its oceans were black with ash, its forests were dead. Its people were scattered across the stars, refugees from their own home. They had done that, and now they would pay. "Send the signal," Wu ordered. "All ships begin the attack." The human fleet moved forward. 8,000 ships flying in perfect formation. They moved like a wave, unstoppable and terrible. The defenders saw them coming and prepared to fight. It was the largest space battle in galactic history, and it lasted less than 6 hours. They fought bravely. Their soldiers knew they were protecting their home. Their commanders gave orders with desperate courage. Their ships fired every weapon they had. But it was not enough. Human technology was simply too advanced. Human weapons were too powerful. Human tactics were too clever. They had spent centuries conquering weaker species. They had never faced an enemy like this. General Wu watched the battle from her bridge. She saw ships explode one after another. She saw the defensive lines collapse. She saw the enemy fleet fall apart like leaves in a storm. "General," her aide reported, "enemy casualties are at 70%. Their fleet is retreating toward the planet." "Do not let them escape," Wu said. "Continue the attack, no mercy." The words tasted bitter in her mouth. She remembered being a little girl, drawing pictures of flowers. She remembered believing that the universe was beautiful and good. She had been so innocent then, so full of hope. Now she was ordering the death of millions, and she knew it was necessary, because they had shown no mercy to Earth. They had killed without hesitation. They had destroyed without regret. And humans had learned long ago that sometimes the only way to stop a monster was to become one. High Commander stood on his command ship and watched his empire fall apart. His fleet was dying. His soldiers were dying. Everything he had known was being destroyed. "We need to surrender," one of his officers said. "We cannot win this fight. If we surrender now, perhaps they will show mercy." Mercy laughed bitterly. "We showed them no mercy. Why would they show us any?" But he knew the officer was right. Fighting was useless. The only hope was to ask for peace and pray that humans were more forgiving than had been. He opened a communication channel. His voice was broadcast across the battlefield. "Attention, human fleet. This is High Commander of the Dominion. We wish to discuss terms of surrender. We ask for peace." The battlefield went quiet. Human ships stopped firing. For a moment there was only silence. Then a voice came back. It was a woman's voice, strong and cold. "This is General Wu of the Human Alliance. We hear your request for surrender." Felt hope rise in his chest. Perhaps the humans would be merciful after all. Perhaps there was still a chance. "We will accept any terms," he said quickly. "We will give you anything you want. Ships, territory, resources, just please stop the killing." There was a long pause, held his breath. Then General Wu spoke again. Her voice was like ice. 50 years ago, we offered you peace. We offered you friendship. We offered you trade and cooperation. We offered you everything." She paused. "Your people rejected our offers. Your leader called us weak. He attacked our planet without warning. He killed millions of innocent people. He burned our home while we tried to talk peace." Closed his eyes. He knew what was coming. "You ask for mercy now," Wu continued. "But where was your mercy when you destroyed our cities? Where was your mercy when you killed our children? Where was your mercy when you laughed at our diplomats and rejected our friendship?" Her voice grew harder. "We gave you 50 years of mercy, 50 years of patience, 50 years of hope, and you threw it all away. So no, High Commander, there will be no mercy today, there will be no surrender, there will be only justice." The communication ended, the battle resumed. Stood on his dying ship and watched the end of his species. Human weapons tore through the defenses. Human soldiers were landing on the planet's surface. Human ships were surrounding the Laika iron ring. "Sir," an officer said weakly, "what do we do?" Had no answer. There was nothing to do. They had started a war they could not win. They had awakened an enemy they could not defeat, and now they would pay the price. He thought about the day when the old High Commander had decided to attack Earth, had been so confident, so sure that humans were weak, so certain that they would fall easily. What a fool he had been, what fools they had all been. On the planet's surface, cities were falling one by one. Human soldiers moved through the streets with terrible efficiency. They were not cruel, they did not torture or abuse. They simply killed, quickly, cleanly, without emotion. In some ways, that was worse than cruelty. Cruelty meant anger. It meant the enemy still felt something for you, but the humans showed nothing. They killed the way you might step on an insect, not with hate, just with complete indifference. The civilians who survived the first attacks were gathered in camps. They were not harmed. They were given food and water, but they were prisoners now. Their world was gone. Their empire was ended. Everything their ancestors had built for centuries was being erased. General Wu landed on the planet after the fighting was done. She walked through the ruins of what had been the capital city. Buildings that had stood for thousands of years were now piles of broken stone. The streets were empty. The silence was complete. An officer walked beside her. He was young, maybe 25 years old. He looked pale and sick. "General," he said quietly, "was this really necessary? All of this destruction, all these deaths?" Wu stopped walking. She looked at the ruins around her. She thought about all the lives that had been lost. Lives, human lives, so much death, so much pain. "No," she said finally. "It was not necessary. It should never have happened." She turned to look at the young officer. They made a choice. They chose to attack us when we offered peace. They chose war when we offered friendship. Every death today on both sides is because of that choice. She started walking again. "Remember this moment," she said. "Remember what happens when peace is rejected. Remember the cost of war. And when this is over, when we rebuild our worlds, make sure that humanity never makes the same mistake." The officer nodded slowly. He did not fully understand, but one day he would. Far above the planet, Admiral watched the end of the Empire from his ship. He had seen many battles in his long life, but this one was different. This one was the end of something, the end of humanity's innocence, the end of the dream that the galaxy could be peaceful. "Admiral," an officer said, "General Wu reports that all major cities are secured. The military has completely collapsed. The war is effectively over." Nodded slowly. "Casualties?" We lost approximately 50,000 soldiers. Military casualties are over 2 million. Civilian casualties are still being counted, but estimates suggest at least 10 million. 10 million dead. And for what? Because one species could not accept that peace was possible. Because one leader had chosen pride over wisdom. Because one moment of cruelty had started a fire that consumed everything. "Prepare a message for all human colonies," said. "Tell them the war is over. Tell them we have won." He paused and closed his eyes. "And tell them that we must never forget the cost of this victory. We must never forget what we were forced to become. Because the day we forget is the day we become just like them." The message went out across the stars. On every human colony, people heard the news. They were defeated. The war was won. Humanity had survived. But the celebrations were quiet, because everyone knew that this victory had come at a terrible price. They had won the war, but they had lost something else, something precious, something that could never be fully recovered. Their belief in a peaceful universe, their hope for a better future, their faith in the goodness of others. They had taken all of that away, and even in defeat they had won that much. On the ruins of the General Wu stood alone as the sun set. The sky was red with dust and smoke. The air smelled of fire and death. Everything was silent. She thought about the paintings she had never made, the flowers she had never drawn, the beauty she had never captured on canvas. Tomorrow she would return to her ship. She would give orders. She would continue being a soldier. But tonight, just for a moment, she allowed herself to remember the girl she had once been. The girl who had believed in beauty and art and peace. That girl was gone now. She had died the day Earth burned, and in her place stood something else. Something harder, something colder, something that could do terrible things because terrible things needed to be done. She looked at the red sky and whispered a single word. "Sorry." She was not sure who she was apologizing to, the who had died, the humans who had been killed, the girl she used to be, maybe all of them. Then she turned and walked back to her shuttle. There was still work to do. There was always work to do. And somewhere in the ruins of the galaxy, humanity prepared for whatever came next. 5 years had passed since the fall of the Empire. The galaxy was different now. Every species had watched what happened. They had seen the peaceful humans transform into something terrifying. They had watched one of the most powerful empires in known space be destroyed in a matter of months, and they had learned a lesson they would never forget. Do not make enemies of humans. Stood at the window of the new human capital looking out at the stars. She was 30 years old now. Her mother's eyes, her father's determination, and a weight on her shoulders that no one should have to carry. She was the daughter of Ambassador, the woman who had spent her life fighting for peace, the woman who had watched that peace die in fire and blood, the woman who had not spoken a single word since the war ended. Was still alive. She lived in a small house on one of the new colonies. She spent her days sitting by the window, staring at nothing. The doctors said there was nothing physically wrong with her, but something inside her had broken during the war, something that could not be fixed. Visited her every month. She would sit beside her mother and tell her about her life, about her work, about the new human government that was trying to rebuild, would listen but she would not respond. Her eyes were empty, her voice was silent. It was the saddest thing had ever seen. But today was different. Today had a job to do. A job that would change the galaxy forever. "Ma'am," an aide said behind her, "they are ready for you." Nodded and turned away from the window. She walked through the halls of the Capitol building. It was a new structure, built on a planet far from the ruins of Earth. It was meant to represent a new beginning, a fresh start for humanity. But knew the truth. There was no fresh start. There was only forward. The past could not be erased. The blood could not be washed away. The only thing humans could do was decide what kind of future they wanted to build. She entered the broadcast room. It was a large space filled with cameras and equipment. Hundreds of people worked at their stations, preparing for the most important message in human history. Today, humanity would speak to the galaxy. Every species would hear their words. Every planet would receive their message. And everyone would understand where humans stood now. Admiral was waiting for her. He was very old now, over 80 years. His body was weak, but his mind was still sharp. He had led humanity through the war, and now he was helping to lead them through the peace. "Are you ready?" he asked. Took a deep breath. "No, but I will do it anyway." Smiled. It was a tired smile. That is the human way. We are never ready. We do it anyway. Walked to the center of the room and stood before the main camera. The lights were bright. The equipment hummed with power. In a few moments, her face would be seen by billions of beings across the galaxy. Beginning broadcast in 30 seconds, a technician announced. Thought about her mother. She thought about all the years had spent trying to build peace, all the hope she had carried, all the dreams she had believed in. She had given everything for a better universe. And had thrown it all away. Now it was turn, not to offer peace. That time was over. Now it was time to explain, to warn, to make sure the galaxy understood exactly what humanity was. Broadcast beginning in 10 seconds. Straightened her shoulders. She looked directly into the camera, and when the red light turned on, she began to speak. "My name is. I am speaking on behalf of humanity. This message is being broadcast to every known species in the galaxy. I ask that you listen carefully, because what I say today will never be repeated." She paused to let her words sink in. 5 years ago, the Dominion attacked they destroyed our cities, they killed our people. They did this while we stood before them with open hands, offering friendship and peace. For 50 years, we had shown them kindness. For 50 years, we had shown them patience. And in return, they showed us fire and death. His voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath her words. The galaxy watched what happened next. They saw our hidden fleet emerge from the shadows. They saw our weapons tear apart the military. They saw us march through their empire and bring it to ruins. They saw the other side of humans. She took a step closer to the camera. Many of you are afraid now. You look at humanity and you see monsters. You see destroyers. You see a species capable of terrible violence. And you are right. We are capable of terrible things. We prove that beyond any doubt. She paused again. But I want you to understand something. We did not want to be monsters. We did not want to destroy. We did not want to kill. For 50 years, we tried everything else first. We offered trade. We offered technology. We offered friendship. We offered peace. We gave the every chance to choose a different path. Her voice softened slightly. My mother was ambassador. She dedicated her entire life to peace. She believed, truly believed, that the galaxy could be a place where different species helped each other, where kindness was stronger than cruelty, where war was a last resort, not a first choice. His eyes grew sad. They broke her, not with weapons, not with torture. They broke her by proving that everything she believed was wrong. They showed her that kindness could be mistaken for weakness, that patience could be seen as fear, that peace could be answered with war. She straightened again. So now I speak to you, the species of the galaxy. I speak to the empires and the federations. I speak to the traders and the warriors. I speak to everyone who is watching and wondering what humanity will do next. Her voice grew cold. Remember what kindness we offered. Remember the 50 years of patience. Remember the diplomats who came to you with open hands and honest words. Remember that we tried everything else first. She leaned forward. And remember what you saw when peace was rejected. Remember the shadow fleet. Remember the weapons that turned ships to dust. Remember the army that marched through the empire like it was made of paper. Remember the silence that followed. She stood straight again. We are not asking for your fear. We are not asking for your obedience. We are simply telling you the truth about who we are. We are a species of two faces. One face smiles and offers friendship. The other face brings destruction beyond imagination. She raised her hand. The choice of which face you see is entirely yours. Come to us with respect and you will find partners. Come to us with trade and you will find friends. Come to us with peace and you will find the kindest species in the galaxy. Her hand closed into a fist. But come to us with war. Come to us with violence. Come to us with the belief that kindness means weakness, and you will meet the other side of humans, the side that does not forgive, the side that does not forget, the side that will hunt you to the ends of the universe and leave nothing behind but silence. She lowered her hand. We tried peace. They showed us what happens when peace is rejected. Now we stand before you with a simple message. We still prefer peace. We still hope for friendship. We still believe that the galaxy can be a better place. Her voice softened one final time. But we will never be victims again. We will never be betrayed again. We will never watch our home burn while hoping our enemies will show mercy. That humanity is gone. What remains is something else. Something that hopes for the best but prepares for the worst. Something that offers kindness but remembers how to be cruel. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes blazing. Remember what kindness we offered. Remember what you chose instead, and choose wisely next time. The broadcast ended. The red light turned off, stood in the silence for a long moment, her heart pounding in her chest. Admiral walked to her side. He put a hand on her shoulder. Your mother would be proud, he said quietly. Shook her head. My mother wanted peace, real peace, not this, not a galaxy that fears us. Sometimes fear is the only path to peace, said. Sometimes you have to show the darkness before others can appreciate the light. They walked out of the broadcast room together. Outside, the stars shone in the endless black sky. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were watching humanity's message. Some would feel fear. Some would feel respect. Some would feel anger. But all of them would remember. That night visited her mother. She sat beside's chair and held her hand. The old woman stared out the window as she always did. Her eyes were distant. Her face was empty. I gave your message to the galaxy, Mother said softly. I told them what you always wanted them to know, that we prefer peace, that we hope for friendship, that we still believe in a better future. She squeezed her mother's hand. But I also told them the truth. I told them what happens when peace is rejected. I told them about the other side of humans, the side you always hoped they would never have to see. For a long moment there was only silence, continued to stare at nothing. Her hand was cold in its grip. Then something changed. Eyes focused, her lips moved, and for the first time in 5 years she spoke. Good, she whispered. Now maybe they will listen. Felt tears running down her face. She hugged her mother tightly, afraid to let go, afraid that if she did, the moment would end and would return to her silence. But hugged her back, weakly, tiredly, but she hugged her back. Outside the window, the stars continued to shine. The galaxy continued to turn. And somewhere out there, 1,000 different species heard humanity's message and understood. Humans were kind, humans were patient, humans preferred peace. But humans were also something else, something older, something darker, something that should never be awakened. And the galaxy would never forget that again. In the years that followed, no one attacked humanity. Trade flourished. Friendships formed. The dream of peace that had worked for finally began to come true. Not because the galaxy loved humans, but because the galaxy remembered what happened to those who did not. And in the end, that was enough. Ambassador lived for another 20 years. She never fully recovered from the war, but she found some peace in her final days. She watched her daughter build the future she had always dreamed of. She saw humanity take its place among the stars. She saw the galaxy become a little bit better, one day at a time. And when she finally passed away, the entire galaxy paused to remember her. The diplomat who had tried so hard for peace, the woman who had shown humanity at its best, and the mother whose daughter had shown humanity at its worst. Both sides were necessary, both sides were true, both sides were human. And that was the final message, not a threat, not a warning, just a simple truth. Humans were everything, light and dark, peace and war, kindness and cruelty, and the universe would have to learn to live with all of it. Because humans were not going anywhere, not now, not ever. They were here to stay.